All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible comeback stories you'll ever hear. We're talking Genesis chapter 41, and it has got it all. Terrifying dreams, a prisoner who's been totally forgotten, and a crisis that is about to bring an entire empire to its knees.
So, where does a story like this even begin? It all kicks off with a nightmare. And I mean, this isn't just your average bad dream. We're talking about a vision so disturbing, so twisted, it shakes the most powerful man in the world to his core. And this one nightmare? It's about to set off a chain reaction that will decide the fate of millions.
So we start with the king's terrifying dreams, a true royal crisis. We're zooming in on Pharaoh, the undisputed ruler of Egypt. I mean, this guy is at the absolute height of his power, right? But he's about to get taken down by the one thing he has no control over, his own mind. Okay, so verse 1. Get this. 2 whole years have passed. Suddenly, Pharaoh's in a dream. Just picture it. He's standing right there by the Nile River, the source of all life in his kingdom. Then, verse 2 kicks in. Out of that water comes 7 beautiful, fat cows. They're sleek, they're healthy. It is the perfect image of peace and prosperity. But then, verse 3 hits, and the whole dream just turns into a total horror show. Another 7 cows start crawling out of the river, but these are just awful. They're ugly, skeletal. You can see every bone. And then, verse 4 delivers the knockout punch. These skinny, starving cows, they attack and devour the fat, healthy ones. What a bizarre, horrifying image. And just like that, bam, Pharaoh wakes up. So, verse 5, he manages to fall back asleep. But guess what? He's thrown right into another dream. And it's so strangely similar. This time, picture a single stalk of grain. And growing on it are 7 plump, perfect heads of grain. But right after that, in verse 6, up sprout 7 other heads of grain, but these are thin and shriveled up, like they've been scorched by the east wind. And then, verse 7, you guessed it, the thin heads of grain swallow up the 7 healthy ones. He wakes up again, and you just know he's thinking, okay, what in the world is going on?
All right, verse 8, the sun comes up and it says Pharaoh's spirit was troubled. And that is an understatement. He is freaking out. He knows this is more than just some bad pizza he ate. So what does he do? He calls in the big guns, all his magicians, all his wise men, the smartest people in the entire kingdom. He tells them the dreams and gets nothing, just silence. Nobody can figure it out. Can you imagine the most powerful man on earth totally stumped and helpless?
So now we get to the part where a prisoner is remembered, with all of Pharaoh's top advisors drawing a blank, and you can just feel the tension rising in the court. A single forgotten memory is about to surface, and this one memory is going to change everything. Okay, verses 9 through 13. This is the butler's big moment. He steps up to Pharaoh and basically says, you know what? I messed up. I'm just now remembering something. He tells the whole story. Pharaoh, you were angry with me and the baker, and you threw us in prison. And while we were there, we both had these weird dreams on the same night. But there was this young Hebrew guy in there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and you won't believe it. He interpreted them for us, and everything happened exactly like he said it would. I got my job back, and the baker, well, he was executed, just like the kid said.
So, verse 14. Pharaoh hears this, and he doesn't even hesitate. He's like, get him, now. And you have to picture the chaos of this moment for Joseph. He's just sitting in a dungeon, forgotten, and then, boom, guards burst in, they rush him out, he gets a quick shave, they throw some new clothes on him, and before he can even process what's happening, he is standing in front of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt.
And here we are. The dream's hidden meaning is about to be revealed. This is the turning point. You've got the king, his entire court of so-called experts who are completely useless, and now they're all staring at this prisoner, this former slave, hoping he has the answer.
So in verse 15, Pharaoh just lays it all out. He says, look, I had a dream, nobody can figure it out, and I heard that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. But check out Joseph's response in verse 16. It's incredible. He immediately says, it's not me. God will give Pharaoh a peaceful answer. He takes 0 credit. He points straight up. So then, from verse 17 all the way to 24, Pharaoh just retells the whole story, every detail of both dreams to Joseph.
Joseph listens to the whole thing, and then in verse 25, he just drops the truth. So simple. He says, Pharaoh, the 2 dreams are actually one. God is showing you what he's about to do. The 7 good cows and the 7 good heads of grain, that's 7 years of incredible abundance, wealth like you've never seen. But the 7 ugly cows and the 7 withered heads of grain, that's 7 years of famine, and not just any famine, a famine so bad it will make everyone forget the good years ever even happened.
And then in verse 32, he adds a crucial detail. The dream was doubled because the matter is fixed by God and God will shortly bring it to pass. In other words, this is happening, for sure, and it's happening soon.
Now, this next part is what makes Joseph so brilliant. He doesn't just drop this bombshell of a prophecy and walk away. Nope. He moves right from interpretation to action, laying out a plan to save Egypt.
Okay, check out this 5-step plan he lays out from verse 33 to 36. Step 1. He says, Pharaoh, you need to find a smart, discerning man and put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Step 2. Appoint officers all over the country. Step 3. Their job will be to collect a fifth, that's 20%, of all the food harvested during those 7 good years. Step 4. Gather all that food and store it in the cities, under your direct control. And Step 5. The whole point. That food will be a reserve for the nation, so that the land doesn't perish during the 7 years of famine. I mean, it's an incredible, practical, life-saving plan.
So we move from the plan to the unbelievable promotion. From prisoner to prince. You have to imagine the relief in that room. Pharaoh and his officials go from total panic to having a clear, actionable solution. And the king's response to Joseph? It's instant, and it is life-altering.
So verse 37 says the plan seemed good to Pharaoh and all his officials. Then in verse 38, Pharaoh turns to his guys and asks, kind of rhetorically, can we find anyone like this man? Someone who has the Spirit of God in him? And then he doesn't even wait for an answer. He looks right at Joseph in verses 39 and 40 and says, since God has shown you all of this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. He basically makes him second in command of the entire empire, right there on the spot. And verse 41, he says it again just to make it clear. See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt.
And the promotion isn't just words. Verse 42 shows us the proof. Pharaoh pulls his own signet ring, the thing he uses to make laws official, right off his finger and puts it on Joseph's hand. Then he has him dressed in robes of fine linen and puts a heavy gold chain around his neck. I mean, in the span of a few minutes, he's gone from prisoner rags to royal robes.
Then, in verse 43, they make it public. They have Joseph ride in the second chariot of the kingdom, and they have people running ahead of him yelling, bow the knee. Everybody has to show him respect. And just to drive the point home, in verse 44, Pharaoh tells him, I am Pharaoh, but without your permission, no one in all of Egypt will lift a hand or a foot. His power is absolute.
And in verse 45, the transformation is complete. Pharaoh gives him a new Egyptian name, Zaphanath-Paneah, and even gives him a wife, the daughter of an important priest. And then verse 46 hits you with this incredible fact. Joseph was only 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. Just 30. Think about everything he'd already been through by that age.
All right, so the prophecy's been made, the plan is ready to go, Joseph's in charge. Now we see what happens when the famine finally arrives. The clock has started ticking on those 7 years of plenty.
And just like the dream said, verses 47 through 49 show us 7 years of unbelievable abundance. The harvest is so massive, Joseph gathers up grain and stores it in the cities. He collects so much that it's described as being like the sand of the sea. They literally stopped counting because it was impossible. And during this peaceful, prosperous time, verses 50 to 52 tell us that Joseph's 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, were born.
And then, verse 53, the 7 years of plenty came to an end. And just like that, in verse 54, the 7 years of famine began, exactly as Joseph had said. And this wasn't just in Egypt. The famine was in all the lands. But in the land of Egypt, there was bread. Thanks to Joseph's plan, they were the only ones prepared.
So in verse 55, the people of Egypt start to feel the pain. They're starving, and they start crying out to Pharaoh for food. And what does Pharaoh say? He gives them a simple command. Go to Joseph. Do whatever he tells you. And verse 56 shows Joseph taking charge, opening up all the storehouses and selling grain to the Egyptians, saving them from starvation. And the story ends, for now, with verse 57. The famine was so severe over the whole face of the earth that every country started coming to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph. The kid who was sold into slavery, the man forgotten in a dungeon, becomes the savior of the known world. It really makes you think, doesn't it? When a crisis feels completely overwhelming and all the experts fail, where can a real solution possibly be found?